Pick whatever it is you want, but then go do it and realize that choices have consequences. You just can't be everything to everybody, and you can't be great at everything you do. You have to pick and choose what you value the most should be what you want to be the best at.
Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome to the show, friend. I am here with my new best friend, Julie. And I am thrilled to have our relationship teacher here training. She's going to help us with our relationships. Have you ever been in those moments when you feel like the pressure cooker and things just keep piling in and there's no release, and it just gets more and more, and you know if any moment someone turned that lid, you would just explode? And how unhealthy that really feels when you're at those states. And how do we build our relationships through continually releasing that buildup? It's not going to just stop building up because we have our ups and downs. We have life. We're here in this physical world experiencing physical things. And pressure's one of those. Because Julie's going to help us to navigate all the things we do in life. And how do we let go of all those expectations and take that pause to let some of the steam off? And it's going to help us in our relationships at work, at play, at home. In everywhere you go, these techniques are going to be able to help us. So, Julie, I'm super excited to have you here. I love these conversations. But before you and I get started, let's get a quick word from our sponsor and we come back. Help us not get so much under pressure. We'll be right back.
This is Adam Adams, co-founder of Optimized LLC, where we take the guesswork out of your health. If you're feeling exhausted, struggling with weight, or just not feeling yourself anymore, your hormones might be the problem. And that's why we test, not guess, analyzing your blood work to pinpoint exactly what's holding you back. At Optimized LLC, we help you rebalance your hormones, boost energy, and reclaim your life. Don't settle for normal. Aim for optimized. Just go to optimized.com to book your free introductory coaching call. It's a free call to help you take the first step toward feeling your best.
All right, Julie, the information about you's in the show notes. So let's get started. And, things happen. So how do I not stuff them in to the point where I feel like blowing up?
Well, of course, the worst thing you can do is stuff feelings. That never works out well. So I think we need to, the problem with somebody feeling like they're about to explode in a pressure cooker would be there's something that they needed to do 3 or 4 steps before that to avoid the problem. And one of those is setting expectations. So in modern times, women unfortunately have been trained, or there's an expectation that we can sort of do everything, have it all, be it all, provide it all. And that's simply not true. Life is about choices, and you're allowed to make whatever choices you want, but it's the expectation that you should be able to have any choice all the time with everybody and do everything perfectly that gets people in an awful lot of trouble.
You're not your lawyer, you're not your butcher, you're not your house cleaner, there are roles. And just because we choose to let other people do some of those things does not make us not keep. And I think the better we can share the load, the better in control we are. Like when we try to do it all, it's just too much.
Well, when you're talking about somebody who's trying to do it all, a lot of times you're talking about a perfectionist, okay? And that is such a crippling way to think. First of all, there is no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. So it would be ridiculous to try and pursue that. Instead, you could pursue excellence in some things, not all things, because again, you can't be excellent in everything. So think of it as sort of a bell-shaped curve, right? If you're going to be really excellent at a few things, they are going to be a few things, not everything. The bulk of the bell-shaped curve of other things you do is just gonna be range from sort of okay to maybe so-so, and then at this end down here are gonna be things that you suck at. And you have to be okay with that distribution because it is not going to be that you do everything perfectly or excellent or wonderfully. There are a few things you can do that way, and you need to be happy with those and keep those going while trying to improve the others, of course. But it is not possible to be perfect. And this notion that you have to have all the parts of your life running in an ideal way is just a recipe for disaster.
And those things that are on the other side of the bell curve that are the sucky things do not make you a bad person.
No,
So
you
many of
embrace
us look at those, that bad side and go, "Oh, I'm just no good."
That's a childish way to look at yourself, which brings me to my second point. Self acceptance is the key to success in relationships and, in fact, life. So, if you are unable, very, very much in a childlike, everything is good or bad, right or wrong, if you're not able to accept the parts that you suck or not so good at, where does that leave you? Constantly feeling crappy. Okay. The adult way to look at yourself, the mature way to look at yourself is self acceptance, where you know there are things you're good at, things you're not good at, and it's okay with you to be those things in those areas.
Thinking about the other side of the bell, those 2 or 3 things we do exceptional, for some reason we think, "Oh, that's just normal."
No.
The
And
things on the low end we think are not normal, but they're
right.
both
Or
okay.
worse, the things on the up end prove your worth, and they don't any more than the things on the other end disprove your worth. So the fact of the matter is we are all ordinary. Unfortunately, for quite a few decades now, we have raised a whole bunch of human beings to think that they're special. And you're not special. You're ordinary. We are all ordinary. And sometimes ordinary people can do exceptional things, but you should not strive to be special or define yourself as special. Be ordinary. It takes an enormous amount of pressure off.
Just being okay with being you is so much value. I add value with the things I do well, and I supplement with the things I don't. I have people around me, and we end up being able to cover all the bases.
But that's because you have an expectation that that's okay. The thing is, for people suffering with the expectation they have to do it all and do it all great, it doesn't occur to them that those are options. So, what we're talking about is expanding your perspective. Everything in life is about perspective and expanding your perspective and really thinking through what's my outcome here? What is it? How do I really want this to go? Whether it's your marriage, running your household, your children, your work, how do I want this to go? And what do I consider successful? Because there's lots of different formularies for that, aren't there?
I definitely was raised with a certain expectation of success. You get married, you have children, you have a good job, or you work at home. Either way, but this is what creates success when you have a nice house over your head and you have a nice car. I want to define my own success.
Well, those are attributes of success. They're not actually success themselves because in order to get the house or get the car or have the kids or whatever, you have to be successful in your relationship. You have to have a good relationship or should, and you have to be competent at work and a responsible person financially. So, those are things that come with maturity, but maturity is something that's sorely lacking nowadays. I'll define maturity as the ability to manage frustration or not getting your way without acting out. And of course, there's about 1.5 million ways to act out. And every time we do, and we all do this, when you act out, it's going to cost you. So if you want to pitch a fit and act out as a kid, what should happen is that your parents provide a consequence for that so that they convince you that it's not in your best interest to continue to act out or misbehave or be defiant or whatever it is you're doing so that you have maturity later in life. And so when life throws you curveballs, and it will, that you don't, tip over and start stomping your feet on the ground like an 8-year-old.
Sometimes I've held things in so much that that little tantrum is a way of me getting it out and letting it go. I remember a time when I threw a tantrum after a concert with my husband, but we were able to step back and go, "Hey, that was me. It's not you. Let's talk about what triggered this to come out, and I will work on that. It's not you change. It's let me find out how I can change to stop the leak."
Right. Well, you realize that this notion of being triggered is something you do to yourself.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm certainly all in favor of getting emotions out, but it sounds to me like you have perhaps a history of stuffing it for a really long time until the fuse just kind of blows.
Oh, absolutely. It
So
would be so
perhaps
much better if I could talk about it up front.
earlier. That's right.
Yes.
Where I said usually the problem is three or four steps before that. So I wonder what it would be like for you if when Laura Jane gets frustrated or starts feeling pressure that she just calmly let it out then. How would that be different?
It'd be great.
What
Just need to do it.
what prevents you from doing it, do you think?
I think fear of the response. And so you to keep everybody at peace and happy, it's easier just to
Ah,
not talk about it.
that sounds like a little bit of a people pleaser to me.
Oh, absolutely.
So, that should be killed. Look,
Let's murder it.
listen, Laura Jane, the only place a people pleaser lands every time is resentment. You can't possibly land anywhere else. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, resentment is a terrible thing to drag around in life, really. It's very debilitating. So, my recommendation for anyone we might be talking to who's a people pleaser is that you deserve to be happy. You deserve to say whatever it is you're feeling or thinking. This idea that you want to keep the peace. See, the thing is with people pleasers, they're basically really, really nice people anyway, just generically. Very nice people. But then they've got this bit on top of that where they're extra nice or extra accommodating or whatever. And what they're doing is trying to avoid rejection or criticism or starting a fight or whatever. But that part makes them disingenuous. It makes it so that people who are dealing with them really can't tell if that's the real person or if that's the fake person that they're trying to manipulate. Now, we have to understand too, that is very manipulative behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So, being that we all want to be our authentic selves, that's the safest, less pressure position to be in, then we would risk the criticism, risk the argument, whatever it is. But what you really find when you want to step out of this and you actually start doing it for real, you will find that you can do it in little baby steps if you like, but you'll find that it's not nearly as bad as you had confabulated it to be.
Oh, and if you do it sooner, it's not as bad as what actually happens
Exactly.
too.
That's right. Sooner is always better. So basically, what we have is kind of this fantasy idea in your head of what negative thing will happen if you speak your mind or say whatever it is you wanted to say. And that's just actually very often inaccurate. And I would suggest that even if somebody did take offense or didn't like it, so what? You work it out. You've had enough laps around the planet now that you know how to have a conversation and problem solve and be compassionate and understanding. Hopefully, you surround yourself with people who are the same. So it should be kind of a no big deal to sort it out. But this idea that you hold it in based on this fantasy catastrophizing that happens, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds until it's huge, that's bad physically, it's bad energetically, and it's certainly bad emotionally.
I think over the years, there's been less and less. You get used to
Sure.
starting to share, and it's like, "Oh, I can talk about that and not get everybody's okay. I can talk about this." And it's just that one layer at a time. It's new things you're running into. And so what happened earlier in our marriage 30 something years ago was way more often than now. Now it's years in between. And it's like, "Oh, I guess I'm holding something else in." When it's more like progress.
Mhm, absolutely. So here's a question. What would it be like if you just didn't do that anymore? Like, you just decided, "You know what?"
Probably beautiful and
Well,
probably
really think about that. What would that be like? Step into that idea that all of a sudden we hit you on the head with the magic plunger, and all of a sudden you just don't do that anymore. It's something you used to do. And now you wake up every day feeling comfortable saying whatever you say, and if it gets somebody's feathers ruffled, you unruffle them and talk about it and work it out and go on about your business. What would that really be like for you?
well, it takes the I have to be the peacemaker of the world off your shoulder, and you only have to be the peacemaker of you. You
Right.
know, and the thing that's hard was hard for me at one point was allowing or thinking that the response I might get was my problem, but it's their problem. If I'm speaking my truth and I'm being honest up front and I get a reaction, that's not a reflection of my authenticity.
Right. It might just be just a bad communication. You know, we need to live by the rule that the real meaning of our communication is not what we thought or intended or wanted to say. It is only in the response we get. So you as the speaker, if you get a response that, you didn't want, maybe it's just as simple as you have to back up a little bit, rearrange the message and try it again,
Mhm.
right? But it shouldn't be these dramatic referendums on whether or not you're a good person. It really
Agree.
needs to be as minimal as, "Oh, okay. So I will challenge you then. I will challenge you maybe just for 3 days. Don't hold anything back." Obviously, you have to consider the consequences of everything you say. You don't wanna just go running at the mouth, but where you used to wanna hold back, why don't you just not do that? Completely. Don't do it at all. Don't be a people pleaser for 3 days and see if the world still revolves around the sun.
I bet you it does,
Pretty
and I
sure.
know I can do it for 3 days.
Well,
I know
if you do it
I
for 3 days,
you can do it forever.
well, you can, because what you're really talking about is building a new habit, Laura Jane. This is not a character flaw. This is an acquired bad habit. It's not a personality thing, it's an acquired bad habit. And fortunately, all habits are changed in the same way. You just do the other thing or the other thing you want to feel consistently for about 2 to 3 weeks, and that will become your new habit. So it will be shocking to you if you actually do this. It'll be shocking to you how quickly you can manage to not go in that behavior anymore, and that it seems kind of odd that you used to do it.
You know, there's a lot of my behaviors that it's like, "Oh, I used to do that." So this
Yes.
would be a new one. I mean, another one I can shed.
And by the way, your husband and others close to you will be very happy if you try this, I believe, because then they get the authentic you, and they don't have to wonder in their mind, is she saying this just because she wants this other thing to happen, or is she saying it because she really means it? I like to have people understand this is exactly where I'm coming from. And if I needed to amend it or get new information and change it, I'm fine to do that. But I'm not going to change me to accommodate what I think their vision of me is.
I always say, "I am responsible for how I deliver the message. You are responsible for how you react to the message." And so as long as I'm delivering with love and kindness, I did not intentionally try to trigger you. If I intentionally try, that's my own fault because most of the time I'm gonna be able to do it. Because you know people's triggers, you know where it's going to put them over the edge, and so I deliver with kindness at all times. But now I can learn to deliver even those things I haven't chosen the words of kindness yet. I know I got really upset at the dog groomer months and months ago, and I'm like, "I am not calling her until I can deliver this message with kindness. I am not calling," you
That's a
know,
very good option.
because she didn't do anything wrong. She just didn't follow my instructions. And so, I was able to choose. Now, if it was someone who was in your face all the time, that might be a little bit harder, but I was able to deliver the message with kindness
It
and I got the results that was needed.
Mhm. Well, the funny thing about when you said having people in your face, the other thing about people pleasers that's really unfortunate is that you almost always have people around you that are, let's say, taking too much. They take too much of your time, too much of your conversation, too much of your awareness. And that's an issue because I believe there are givers and takers in the world. And unfortunately, the givers in the world kind of have a target on them that the takers in the world see. I mean, it's like an energetic thing. And
Mhm.
so people pleasers almost always, in fact, I don't even know if I've ever met one out of all the many I've met that didn't have this happen, where they have people in their lives that just allow to take advantage of them, whether it's money or time or attention or something. And again, they're always resentful for it, but they keep doing it. So, the other thing to consider about not being a people pleaser anymore and speaking your truth is a lot of times that involves just using the beautiful word no, which can be delivered with great kindness and love and care. But no is a perfectly good answer. If you do not want to be with somebody or you do not want to give something to somebody, then you need to say no. It's just that simple. And the people who really love and care about you will never have a problem with that. It's only the people that are trying to take advantage of you that would have a problem with that naturally because you're raining on their parade. So what? If people who do not have your best interest in mind, with whom you are not reciprocal in your arrangement or relationship, if they don't like what you're doing or saying, fine. You have to understand that there are, in fact, only two kinds of people in the world. There are the small group of people that truly love and care about you, and you truly love and care about them, and there is reciprocity of some kind in your relationship, and it's lovely. Then there's this huge category called everybody else. And people pleasers are always trying to treat everybody else like they treat the people in that small category of people who love and care about you. And that's just delusional. You can't do that. There's two categories for a reason, and they deserve and should have very different interaction from you.
So, how do we interact with those that aren't our small circle? All the everyone else's.
Kindness and basic human courtesy, but they should not have a high level of access to you. See, people pleasers always let everybody else have a higher level of access to you and your resources and your time and whatever else than they should. Now, I think of myself as a very giving person. I have lots of people in my life. I really, really, really enjoy helping people and doing things for other people. But Laura Jane, how many people do you think I have in my life who take from me in a pressured kind of a way or take advantage of me?
I'm gonna guess none.
Big fat zero. And that's because I don't have a problem making a separation in my head and my behavior with other people to say no or to not give them a higher level of access to me. The people in my small group can have all kinds of access to me. I'm happy with that. But everybody else doesn't get that because they haven't earned it. And by the way, while we're on the subject of the people in that small, tight category, beware, be very, very cautious that if anybody in that small circle of people who we say love and care about you and they have high level of access to you and it's all lovey-dovey, make sure that if there are people in that group who share DNA with you, that they have actually earned their way into that group. They don't get automatic admission just because they share DNA with you. That's another trap.
There are a lot of people that get triggered by their family members. And it's because we keep allowing them to cross the line because of the DNA and
Right.
where we don't honor our own boundaries we've set.
So if you are triggered by something, your job is to get over it. You should not walk around in the world being triggered by things constantly. But it involves drawing a line and standing your ground. And that gets us back to the original position that your self acceptance, even self esteem, should not be based on what other people think of you. It's true that men suffer horribly from this when they're in a relationship, but it's really true of women too. If you're going to make your value and worth dependent on what some random person thinks of you, then you are screwed. It's over for you. You will never find peace and happiness. And I would say that most people trade their peace far too easily.
And it is something we have the ability to keep.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We do. But it has to be defended.
What are the steps to learn to let go of some of this people pleasing or letting
You
go of
know,
our
it's
own
not
peace?
I that's a good question, but I've found it's not such a matter of learning because most people pleasers I know very well who they're letting in too close, who they're giving too much access to, who's taking advantage of them. Would that be true of you?
Yeah, for sure.
It really is for the most part. So it's not a matter of learning some sort of steps or what to do to fix that. It is a decision. And it's a decision that you've been kicking around in your head, like most people pleasers, for a very long time. But here's the thing decisions happen in an instant. Debating it in your head can go on to infinity. We don't have an infinite life. We have a short time on this planet, and it's best, I think, that we make full use of it. So if you're pissing away days and weeks and months and even years trying to be something for somebody else who doesn't care as much about you as you're trying to care about them, then you've made a huge mistake. So it is a decision at the end of the day. You have to decide I'm going to protect my peace. I am going to maximize my time of spending with people that I love and care about. And I will only be in people with people who I have a reciprocal relationship with of some kind.
And it is makes total sense to make those decisions with the people closest to you, because if you don't, it's gonna happen the most often. These people that occasionally come by, we can work on them later because 'cause they're only occasionally going to help us find our own little triggers.
Mhm. No, it should be that you are purposely choosing who you want in your life and who you spend your time, effort, and resources on. And it
Ye
shouldn't be based on anybody's preference but yours.
But there's a lot of situations where we don't get to choose who's around us. Maybe we're out to dinner, maybe we can choose whether or not we're there, but sometimes you don't know who's going to be there. So, I'm at the movie theater, I'm at work, and these people cross our paths. So, I've always tried to in my head, these are things I know trigger me. What is my response when it's gonna happen? Because I am the one responsible for my response.
Well, yes, but you're also responsible for not being triggered in the first place.
Absolutely. How do
Okay.
I, like, take the breaker out so those triggers
Well,
don't even get
that's
touched?
that's a great question, and the answer is your perspective. So,
Expectations.
ho perspective. How okay, so if we have something that a feeling we don't like or we get angry at a particular situation, there's some way that you're seeing it, feeling it, or hearing it in your own head that's probably exaggerated in some way, okay?
Okay.
So, we can take an example. So, let's say you're at a restaurant and maybe somebody's on their cell phone talking or they're being very annoying in some way. So, are you talking about something like that?
Sure. Yeah,
Uh,
I'm just knowing that in a lot of situations, it's people we don't know. Yeah.
sure. Well, so in that situation, it's where you choose to put your awareness, which will dictate what your perspective is. Anybody could sit there and get very annoyed with that and notice how loud it is and notice how disruptive it is and point to all the other people that look annoyed too. And I mean, you can see, the thing is, what you put your awareness on grows. So I often do this with people who have parents, especially moms, who are very critical. So there's a way that you can turn down the volume in your head because the things we say about ourselves, like we should do this, we shouldn't do that, this was bad, this was good, that's usually the commentary from our most critical parent. It's not your voice. You weren't born with that. So, assuming that it's kind of a replay of your mom's voice, let's say, if you imagine vividly, it's all in your imagination, that's what changes people, by the way, not logic. If you imagine turning down the volume on that, it's stunning how much your awareness changes and therefore the triggering of it. Like you
So,
yourself. Can you think of somebody who it doesn't have to be your mom, but whoever was very critical of you growing up?
it could have been my mom, even though in the end it was completely the different. But growing up, I felt I always had to change me to
Okay,
be.
that's so when you're alone with your own thoughts and you find yourself thinking, "I should do this," or "That's not good if I do that," or and you wonder about being a good person and all those kind of things that you do. Can you identify that it's actually your mom's voice if you had to break it out, it's not your voice? Okay. Well, you wanna play a little imagination game because this is really fun.
Sure,
Okay, close your eyes, and I want you to vividly take a nice deep breath in for me.
I did.
Oh, let it out. Good. Okay. Next, I want you to imagine, Laura Jane, that in your mind, vividly imagine this now, that you have a volume dial of your mom's voice. Now, you didn't know you had a volume dial of your mom's voice, but indeed there it is. And I want you to tell me, first of all, as you locate it, is it a black dial with white numbers or a white dial with black numbers?
How about a silver dial with black and white numbers in behind it? It's a silver dollar.
And it's black
Yeah, the
numbers.
background behind is black, and then it's got white numbers.
Okay. Now, what number is the volume set on currently?
8.
8. Okay. Now, this is all voluntary. You do not have to do this if you don't want to, but we're going to experiment a little bit. Would that be all right with you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want you to imagine turning the volume dial from 8 to 6, 2 clicks down to 6. Is that better or worse?
Oh, for sure better.
Okay. In what way is it better?
I can hear my own thoughts.
Ah, okay. So that 8 was pretty darn loud, drowning out your own thoughts. Okay. Well, let's turn it down one more to 5, 4. How does 4 feel?
Extremely peaceful.
Really?
Yeah.
So significantly different.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, of course, you're very welcome to have the volume dial set wherever you prefer. Would you like to leave it at 4 or would you like to try and go a little lower?
I think I go just a tiny bit lower.
Okay, one more. 3. So the volume set at 3. How does that feel?
Mm. I can still hear her words, but they don't hurt.
There you go. So you still get the intention of her message without the emotional pain with it. That
Yes.
sounds like a perfect volume to me. Doesn't it sound perfect to you?
Absolutely. Yes, I could replay those messages
So now,
out of
mind you,
3.
you can turn it down further if you wish. You can turn it back up. You can do whatever you wish.
I think there would be times when I just push the mute button
At a
and go
3, and
on.
it'd be very tolerable, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yes, I think this could work.
Perfect. Okay, now open your eyes whenever you're ready. Okay, and then tell me now, since the volume dial has been turned down to 3, and with it, the messages that may have been put pressure on you, does this seem like you would be more able or less able to be your own person, talk with people openly, candidly?
More able for sure.
You think?
'Cause, the criticism that I was hearing in my own head has disappeared to just information.
Right. So most people do tend to kind of confuse the criticism they expect from other people with the criticism they used to have,
Yes.
right? So this is kind of a cool way of separating out what used to happen for sure in real life and what you were fearful of happening, kind of a fantasy idea, but it really wasn't real. And there may be some people that complain about your openness, but they would not be people who love and care about you. Those would be people that are selfishly trying to maintain their position with you. And that's why they don't want you to speak openly.
I
Because
think
certainly anybody who loved and cared about you would want you to feel free to express your thoughts.
I don't think there's anybody in my close circle that wouldn't love for me to just express things instead of holding it in. I think they would all honor
Exactly,
it
but
very
you're not
much.
worried about those people. Yes, but you weren't worried about those people. You were worried about some random people in the everybody else category,
Yep. And they don't matter.
and there's just too many.
Um,
And I don't mean to say that unkindly. Obviously everybody matters, but they are not deserving of a high level of access to you, and they are not deserving of a lot of your resources.
when I said they don't matter, I meant their opinion of me and towards me doesn't matter. They matter as a human being.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, what a fun little tool. I've done it with other types of things, but not that critical voice in my head. So it's beautiful.
Thank you, I'm glad you liked it, and getting back to that whole idea of self-acceptance, how in the world can anybody be self-accepting really when you have this negative critical chatter going on in your head? You can't. So if you clear that out of the way, it's kind of amazing where you could land.
Yeah, absolutely. In a peaceful garden all the time.
Right. That's right.
Julie, this has been fun. We talked about that pressure cooker, and it definitely sounds like this is that cool tool to not even put the pressure knob on top of the cooker, you know, where there's no buildup because you didn't stop the release at the very beginning. It's okay to be on the heat. It's okay to have those things. But how do I let go of it right at the beginning? And if I can find a way to turn down that shadow voice or that bully voice that I call it and turn it down so that the friendly voices take over and support us. And that can be your voice. How much more power we'd have every moment.
And while we're talking about the pressure cooker, initially when we talked about that scenario, I think had some people-pleasing aspects to it, to somebody that puts themselves in that situation, but it also has an overlay of expectations because you can't be everything to everybody and you can't do it all. So, at the end of the day, you are the one who chooses what you value in your life, and we can always tell what people value, really value, because it's what they exchange time, money, effort, and awareness for. But those are all limited resources. So you can't go into something that requires 3 things that require this much energy when you only have this much to start with. So, I think there is a lot of pressure on people to feel like they have to, like for women especially, like they have to have a career and they have to be a parent, but those are extremely difficult to blend because you can't do both of them really well as a rule, because one of them is gonna suffer when you're doing the other one. So, you have to be really, really careful how you make the choices that you make so you don't get in a conundrum of not being able to perform in the way that you wanted to perform.
I like it. We are actors on our own stage. And how much easier would it be to just perform me instead of a pretend me out there in the light?
And also pick the role you wanna play. So, if you wanna have children, stay home and raise them. If you don't wanna have children, great, you don't have to. You can stay home and do nothing, you can go to work, you can do whatever you want. And if you choose to be in a career, you're taking the place of someone else who may want that job or want that career. One of the things that just frustrates the crap out of me are these people, men and women, who go to medical school or law school, and then they get their degree or they pass the bar, and then they don't do anything with it. They don't work as a doctor and they don't work as an attorney. Well, they just took up a place of somebody who really wanted to be that and now isn't because they are and they're not using it. So I think it's really important that we're not trying to prove our value or worth or prove we're living up to somebody else's expectations. Pick what you want to do. God bless you. Pick whatever it is you want, but then go do it and realize that choices have consequences. You can't You just can't be everything to everybody, and you can't be great at everything you do. You have to pick and choose what you value the most is should be what you wanna be the best at.
Maybe I thought I wanted to be a doctor, and until it was I got into school and learned all the things that I was gonna have to do, I changed my mind.
Change your
Whereas
mind and get out
saying
so somebody else can take that spot. But don't go all the way through and pass your boards and then do nothing.
makes sense. Choose what's gonna make you happy, and when you know something you're doing's not what you want for your end result, it's okay to move on.
Change it. Life is about change. But there are some things, like bringing another human in the world, you can't change. So, some decisions have to be more carefully thought out than others. You
Absolutely.
once you set a path, be good at that.
Yes. And there's always Y's and T's and crossroads in your path, and we can choose which direction we go all along the way. Life is
That's
choice, and that's what gives us so much power.
that's right.
Mm, I love it. Julie, this has been fun. How about sharing with our friend a little bit about you, what you do, how to get a hold of you?
Sure. So, I am a self-described relationship trainer. What that means basically is that I train people, that's as opposed to being a therapist, by the way, which I also am, but I don't believe in therapy, I believe in training. So, most people, when they come to a marriage counselor, which is essentially what people think of me as, they're actually wanting skills. They're wanting information on how to learn this or change that. And specifically to do things like communication is usually the big thing they want to learn to do better. Communicate better, stop arguing, problem solve, forgive, let go, things like this. Most of those are maturity dramas in the end. However, I do teach skills, the skills required to do all of that, and walk through with them in a program how to implement that in their life. So they end up being better spouses, better parents, better siblings or relatives, and so forth. So I do that in person on Zoom. It's my passion. It's what I really enjoy. I'm finished the first couple of chapters of a book I'm co-writing with my mentor, Scott McFall, and we're going to have a fabulous book about relationships and actually how to have ESP in your relationships, which
Mm,
is really fun. And it will involve some of the concepts we even talked about here today. So I think it's gonna be kind of epic actually, but it's a lot of fun to write. So I'm looking forward to finishing that. And I periodically do webinars and events and so forth for speaking. So that's all wrapped up in what I do. The website that I use for all of that is called Outcomes Only because I believe, and we have not talked about yet, about how important outcomes are. Outcomes are everything, everything. And everything you do and everything you say should be directed toward one of your outcomes, or it's probably either irrelevant or possibly damaging. So your feelings need to be connected to where you're going, not what you're feeling in the moment, which is kind of an advanced concept that I teach. And when you can learn some of these skills, your relationship can change a lot. So I do obviously private training with couples and individuals, even corporate speaking on the same subject.
yeah, that's magical. I love it. So, if we were to pick one thing, so we've talked about so many, and I just don't have the bandwidth to remember them all for tomorrow. What's that one thing that would make the most sense to try now?
For the thing that would make the most sense to try now is to change your perspective using your imagination to start chasing what you want, not what you want to get rid of. Have a well defined goal, your outcome, and chase that. Put all your feelings forward onto that goal, chase it, and you'll likely get it. These paths that we end up going down about worrying, is this going to be right? Is this wrong? What does this mean about me? What would somebody say? All that stuff that clutter we just have to get rid of. Pick a goal and chase it. Tony Robbins is famous for saying, successful people spend 95% of their time looking forward into the future and 5% on the past. And I think that's really true.
Do you spend time self-reflecting so that I can learn from what I've done? I think probably more than 5% of my time. So I got to close it down or have less to reflect on.
But the purpose of the past is to learn from it, for sure. That's exactly right. However, most people have learned from the past. They just keep going back to revisit it. And that doesn't have a point. So the point is you take those positive learnings that you got from whatever experiences we've all gone through, and you bring those into the future where they provide wisdom. But the problem is when you keep going back to revisit things, especially painful or difficult things, what you're doing is you're bringing along all the negative emotions that you had with that learning forward into the future, and then it ruins the learning. That's why people know very well what they went through in the past, and they probably already know the lessons they were supposed to learn, but they keep going back and touching the past again, remembering how it felt, remembering what they said, remembering what happened, and that just dredges up a whole bunch of negative feelings that they can't get out of. So you cut the cord on the emotion of it. The emotion was there as part of the learning. Leave it in the past. Take the learning and move forward. So therefore, there should be no real reason, to Tony Robbins' point, there's no real reason to keep going back in the past and reviewing it. I think most people have learned their lesson. They're just not implementing it.
When I say the past, I'm thinking the last day or two, not years. When I do my personal reflection
Eh,
10 years ago, it's what happened today, what worked, what didn't work, and how do I make sure I'm moving along my path with more that works? So, yes, I agree. Let's let that 30 years ago stuff go, not keep carrying it because it just
Oh,
slows
yeah,
us down. Well,
completely. That's
yeah.
exactly.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been eye opening. Thank you for the practices. So I
You're
was able
welcome.
to not be driving and do it along with us because it's a great way to
Me too.
experiment how things change. And if you were driving, listen again or play it through in your mind when you get to a place where you can, because it is definitely a powerful tool. So thank you so much for sharing it with us and walking us through it. I think it
My
really
pleasure.
helps. And friend, thank you for joining. It's been our pleasure to have you here with us. I am not a licensed medical or mental professional. Julie and I are here for entertainment, not medical advice. Please follow your therapist or your doctor's advice and come again. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss the next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.